Good morning, church, and happy post-Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a blessed Thanksgiving and that you had all your favorite comfort foods. I sure did. As you all know, that is my favorite holiday the whole year. So also I want to say thank you for being who you are as a congregation. And thank you for the opportunity that I was able to go on vacation last week, and it was an awful, awful vacation. San Diego at this time of the year, it's only in the 70s and only sunny. But if it's any consolation to you, I got sick. So there you go. I started this sermon many times because we need to talk a little bit this morning about pledging, about money. And the reason I have problems with this is because my experience with pledging and with financial stewardship is that it often leaves a very bitter taste in people's mouths, and I understand that. Some of you here have gone through many different programs as we try as a Lutheran church, not just here at Mount Olive, but to try to get people to understand the importance of what it is to give, not just to support the ministry of a place, but also as a spiritual gift. But we have done some good things and some bad things. How many of you remember the Pony Express? Right? Remember? And it was all about shaming you. How many of you have ever been part of a congregation that at the end of the year they put your name and how much you gave for the end of the season? We're starting that this year, by the way. But and how many of you have had it where either you've received the visit or you are on the visiting team where 2 or 3 of you go to each household to talk about money, right? All these different things. There's some good things and there's some bad things about it, but we miss the main point, I think, because we talk about these gimmicks. We talk about, well, let's do this. And like for me, when I've been parts of congregations where they do a 4-week series on stewardship, how many of you have sat through one of those? The first week, everybody, of course, is in the congregation is there until they realize it's going to be a 4-week presentation, and they don't show up for the next 3 weeks because we don't treat you like adults. You understand what it means to give. You understand what it means to say thank you to God for all the blessings we have, whether it's financial or material or with family and all that stuff. Okay? So I'm going to treat you like adults and just tell you that the reason we do this, the reason we ask you to pledge, is because it gives us a really good idea as we plan our ministry for 2020. Okay? When we kind of have a guesstimate about how much revenue will be coming in, we know what programs that we can continue with and make better. It also gives us an idea about what adventures we might be able to enter into if we know about how much the finances are going to be. Okay? Now, how many of you have streaming services at your house? Hulu, Netflix, and the new one that I just love, Disney Plus. Oh. For those of you that don't stream, just think about like when you listen to the old Victoria radio. But anyway, what I like about streaming, what I like about the whole thing with the streaming thing is that I have it automatically come out of my checking account, right? And I don't have to think about it. So I'm going to give you a little plug. If you want to pledge, I really encourage you to. We're not going to hold you to it. We're not going to be banging on your door when you fall behind in your pledge or anything like that. It's just a way for us to get a gauge, but also it's a way for you to be accountable to yourself, right? But the other thing is that we have this system called Simply Giving, where you can actually take your weekly or monthly or bi-weekly offering right out of your checking account. And for me, I love it. Because as I was talking in the Narthex, I haven't written a real check in years. And I never have any cash, right? So just a little plug for that. So why do we need money? We need money because we are a congregation that exists to empower one another in our discipleship. We are a congregation that exists to share the hope that we hear here, that we receive here. We are a congregation that empowers one another to go out into the world and share that word of hope with people that may never set foot in a church. We are a congregation here in Mugwanago, in a certain place, at a certain time, put here by God to do the work of the kingdom. And what is that work? So let's turn now to the lesson as we get into this. I'm going to, and I mean this one seriously, I'm going to give you a little heads up here. This parts of this sermon are X-rated. Because of the material matter and because of what we need to talk about to understand what's going on. At the beginning of this chapter in Jeremiah that was read, Jeremiah is giving the prophecy of what God is telling Jerusalem is going to happen to them. And it is a gruesome picture of carnage, a gruesome picture of the horrors that are of war. What it says in this first part of Jeremiah is that the invading army, Babylonian or Chaldeans, its same name, are going to break into the city of Jerusalem and fill the streets with blood. Fill the streets with the bodies of children, women, and men. That the city is going to be razed to the ground. And yet, when we read it, too often we're kind of detached from it and hardly give it a second thought. We have been in many wars in this country, but the first time the American public ever saw a picture of a dead American soldier was in 1943. That was when Life magazine published a photo of dead American soldiers on the beach in Papua New Guinea. And I can't overstate enough the shock that brought to this country. Maybe some of you were alive back then. We had never seen the horrors of war in that way where it hits home. But for most of us sitting here this morning, we are no longer disturbed by those sorts of images, just like we're not disturbed about what we read in Jeremiah. And we give thanks to God that most of us here this morning can't even fathom the violence and the evil and the hopelessness of war and genocide. For those of you that have seen the horrors of war firsthand, only you can talk about the deep change that has made in your life. Sadly, you understand what it means to see the streets literally filled with the bodies of children, of women, and of men. This is really uplifting stuff on this first Sunday in Advent, so I'm glad that you're here for it. But I want us to understand the context of where this reading takes place. We need to understand, as best as we can in our own context, what the people of Judah were living through. The Babylonians have laid siege to Jerusalem for at least 2 years, and that means that no one comes in or out, there's no food coming in or out, or any thing like that. And the people are literally starving to death. And once the Babylonians break that siege and they enter the city, they murder, they rape, they burn, and they destroy the city of David. The hope of the throne of David is gone. And if you're of any person of importance whatsoever, if you survived that first wave, you will be taken into exile, away from your homeland, to be a foreigner, to be a slave. The point of all this in Jeremiah is that the people are paying dearly for their arrogance. They're paying dearly for not relying on God. And because of that, they were totally shattered. There is no thought of tomorrow because they're just trying to survive. So if we can at least imagine at best we can this terrible, horrendous situation, it is into that situation that this word of hope has been spoken. The days are surely coming, says the Lord, when I will fulfill the promise I made to the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Now, there's nothing new under the sun, and we know that. Now, we may not be experiencing war in our homeland, thank goodness for that. But people are still living here in this country in desperation because of jobs insecurity. Because a lot of us are just one medical bill away from bankruptcy. That for a lot of us, there's too much month for the paycheck. We deal with aging parents. Homelessness is on the increase. Almost every family has been touched by the opioid and meth crisis. Teen suicide is on the uprise, and so is veteran suicide. And so we turn off the news. We can become so overwhelmed by the pain and suffering in our own country here in the United States, and then to add on to it all that is happening around the world. It can be too much. But this is the world that you and I live in. This is the time, and this is the place in which we live. And people of God, people of Mount Olive Lutheran Church, we have the word that the world needs to hear. We have the word of hope. Now, will this word of hope solve problems? No, not right away. But you see, hope is a dangerous thing. Where there is hope, there is life. Where there is hope, there is a strength to continue on to take just one more step. Where there is hope, there is life. So we do not become overwhelmed by the present because we know it is not the future. We have been blessed, for we have heard the word of hope given to us by God, and this word must be shared. And if you and I don't do it, who will? We gather as a congregation here in this place because we know here we have words of hope. But we don't keep it just here for Sunday mornings or Bible studies or book group. because this word of hope has to be shared, because we understand that hope changes people's lives. That even in the worst that this world can deal to us, you and I exist to empower one another to carry that word of love and hope into the world. To go from this place this morning to brunch, to home, to grocery shopping, being bearers of the good news that our future is in God's hand. This is the first Sunday of Advent. This is the season of hope and of light. May we be the people from whom our neighbors hear the true story of God's grace and hope for all people. Amen.
Please stand.